Hello, dear learners. I'm Professor Stephen Deepak, faculty at the School of Management, Christo Jayanti College, Bangalore. I'm here to give you a certain understanding on sustainable HRM, what it means for organizations today, and how HR can play a very meaningful role in organizations and trying to make the organization life and the systems a lot more sustainable and contributing in nature. So let's look at three important questions that I want to address in this video. What is sustainable HRM? And how can sustainability be seen in the HR functions as we traditionally understand that? And what will be the need and role of the sustainable HRM concept in the present context is what we will be uh, deliberating and understanding through this particular video. So, for which we need to understand sustainable HRM. What does it mean? So, sustainable HRM has been evolving and building on the concept of strategic management. Strategic HRM, which was very prominently deliberated upon in organizational discussions and very strongly advocated that strategic understanding must be there while we are formulating organization strategies and then try to see how we can align HRM, uh, to be a major contributor to the strategic achievement of goals. An idea that evolved around 25 to 30 years ago. But today we talk about sustainable HRM. 30 years ago, when we spoke about strategic HRM, the whole idea was to make sure that HR will play a strategic role and then be able to bring in the financial outcomes as expected. But today, sustainable HRM is a lot more comprehensive, a lot more holistic in nature. It just does not look at financial outcome, but looks at several other dimensions that are considered to be important and need of the hour. So sustainable HRM is built around a broader organizational goal and not just in terms of business goals, but in terms of what it can do by creating and adding value to the life of various stakeholders who are part of the organization. And central to this approach is HRM. If we want to bring in sustainability wholly and throughout the organization, it is possible only through the people within the organization whom we should be able to make them think and understand about sustainability so that they develop an attitude for sustainability and bring in that value system and then be able to implement that while they actively go about doing their jobs in the organization. So, sustainable HRM seeks to achieve positive economic, social, human, and environmental outcomes simultaneously, both in the short term as well as in the long run. So, where its focus is not just on helping the organization to achieve its financial returns, but it's also looking at how it can enrich and contribute and better lives in terms of social, human, and the environmental dimensions. So, according to researchers, organization sustainability refers to obviating the stakeholders' direct and indirect demands while taking care of future stakeholders' demands. So, sustainability as a concept is brought into to such a dimension and it's positioned in such a manner where organizational leaders and practitioners are looking at using the sustainability concept not just to deliver to the current stakeholders and then be able to satisfy their demands and make the organization more sustainable and thereby they benefit. But it is also much more concerned about what is going to be the future of the organization, what role is the organization going to take up in future, and how it's going to be contributing in a very sensible, in a very meaningful, and in a very responsible manner is what SHRM today is more concerned. And then we are looking at how we can bring that out in all our discussions and in the way we practically want to do it in the organization. So, sustainability plays a very significant role in determining the theoretical and the pragmatic human resource relationships where we are trying to see how some of these theoretical concepts of how we can bring sustainability can be very actively and effectively implemented in the organization. And that's where we see that through the lens of the triple bottom line, which looks at ecological, economic, and delivering the social benefits in the long run. According to sustainability HRM, we can understand uh, bringing in sustainability into the HR practices in basically three kinds of approaches. One is to bring in sustainable HRM into the system and to create a sustainable work system and bring in sustainable HRM in the way in a conceptual understanding of how we can go about with our functions. So sustainable resource management aims to clarify the association between an organization and the environment and to propose approaches to deal with better use of resources and to look at conservation as a very important aspect to make sure that anything and everything that we are doing for the economic benefit of the organization is done in a very resource conscious manner, and that is what sustainable resource management is going to focus on. So that's one dimension of how we are bringing sustainability into the whole function of HR. Secondly, we're looking at work systems to see that the social aspect of sustainability that intends to expand the perception of mechanisms that result in the implementation and the improvement of human resources. So how the work system in the organization can evolve, and then how it can enrich and better the lives of the people who are working in the organization, and how we are able to attract talent in a more sustainable manner, and how we are able to deploy the talent in a more meaningful and in a more responsible manner, and to revisit our entire work system and processes to see that we are implementing the HR functions in a much more people friendly manner, in a much more sustainable and enriching manner for the good of the people who work, uh, who, who contribute to the organization. And finally, sustainability is regarded as a shared advantage for stakeholders, not just looking at uh, a benefit for the employees who work in the organization, but bettering the work system, and not just looking at the not just focusing on the environmental friendliness and being very planet conscious, but we should also bring in sustainability to look at ways and means by which we can contribute and deliver those demands or contribute to the requirements of the stakeholders so that every stakeholder who's directly or indirectly involved in our organization becomes a party to the sustainable agenda or goals of the organization. Hence, HR sustainability is a set of skills, motivations, values, and trust created to avoid detrimental environmental effects by adopting justice, development, and welfare in the long run. And that is what the sustainable concept of ensuring that we are not just focused on the short term benefits and short term agenda, but we are also focused on what we do today and how it can contribute and pave the path for a long term sustainable action plan that we can bring about in the future or in days to come. So sustainable HRM can be defined as those long-term oriented conceptual approaches and activities aimed at a socially responsible and economically appropriate recruitment, selection, development, deployment, and release of employees. And that's what Tom and Zach would comment and would go on to effectively define. To make that a little more simpler in our understanding, we've been traditionally going on with our HRM functions of recruitment, selection, training and development, performance appraisal, compensation and rewards, and so on. So there is a lot of theoretical perspectives and a lot of thought that has evolved on how to bring about sustainability in the organization and how to bring in sustainability or sustainable thought in all these functions. So we've got to only go ahead and look at ways and means, look for innovative solutions that are around us, which are being proposed by various practitioners in the industry, and see how we can bring in that element of sustainability in recruitment, an element of sustainability in selection, element of sustainability in development, deployment, and then finally the release of employees. I would go ahead and give you another definition of Kramer. Kramer would go on to say that sustainable HRM refers to social and human outcomes which contribute to the continuation of the organization in the long term, that is to to a sustainable organization. So how we can blend not just the human concern, but to also blend the social concern. And then, if we are able to very judiciously and very sensibly, very responsibly, and very strategically blend the social and the human outcome, then we automatically will be able to see those financial outcomes in the long run. If not in the short term, but in the long term, definitely we are creating a very sustainable uh, foundation. We are putting the organization on a very firm footing. We are putting the organization or building the organization on that sustainable foundation. So even if we do not see those results in the short term, but definitely it's going to reap good and very rich dividends in the long run as we continue to uh, look at sustainable outcomes, and the result of which is what we will be able to see a better future for our organization as we continue to uh, contribute in the triple bottom line approach, and then be able to make that very good for the organization in the short term as well as for the organization and the whole world in the long